The fluorescent lights of the downtown hospital cafeteria buzzed overhead like dying insects, casting a sickly yellow glow over everything they touched. I stood behind the serving counter, my hands raw from scrubbing industrial-sized pots, watching steam rise from vats of tasteless soup that nobody ever finished. The smell of overcooked vegetables and disinfectant had seeped so deeply into my skin that I couldn't remember what I used to smell like before this job consumed my life. 3 years. 3 years since Marcus walked out, leaving me with nothing but debt, and the kind of loneliness that settles into your bones like winter cold. I'd become invisible here, just another face in scrubs serving food to doctors who looked through me, nurses who barely nodded, patients who stared at their trays with the same hollow expression I saw in my mirror every morning. My reflection in the steel serving counter showed a ghost. 28, but the exhaustion made me look older. My dark hair pulled back so tight it gave me headaches. No makeup. Because what was the point? Nobody saw me anyway. I was background noise, elevator music, the flicker of a dying bulb that everyone ignored until it finally went dark. Earth to Emma. Karen's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. She was the head cafeteria supervisor, a woman whose bitterness had calcified into something almost impressive. Table 12 needs clearing, and try to smile. You're scaring people with that face. I grabbed the gray plastic bin and pushed through the double doors into the main dining area. The lunch rush was ending, leaving behind a battlefield of half-eaten meals and crumpled napkins. My feet ached in the cheap shoes I'd bought at a discount store, the kind that fell apart after 3 months, but were all I could afford on a cafeteria worker's salary. Table 12 sat in the corner, the VIP section we rarely used. Someone important must be here. Probably another hospital donor come to feel charitable while eating subsidized food. I approached with my eyes down, the way I'd learned to move through the world. Invisible. Insignificant. Safe. But the air around that table felt different. Heavier. Charged with something I couldn't name. I smelled it first. Expensive cologne that didn't belong in this place of antiseptic and decay. Cedar and something darker, like smoke and leather and money. Then I noticed the shoes, Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine. The kind that cost more than my monthly rent. My gaze traveled up slowly, taking in the charcoal suit that fit like it had been tailored specifically for the body underneath. The crisp white shirt open at the collar, revealing a throat I had no business noticing. When I finally looked at his face, my hands went numb. He was young, early 30s maybe, with the kind of beauty that felt dangerous. Sharp jaw dusted with deliberate stubble, full lips that looked cruel and inviting simultaneously, dark hair swept back to reveal a face that could have been carved from marble by someone who understood both angels and demons. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Hazel, but not soft. Predatory, intelligent. The kind of eyes that saw everything and forgot nothing. He was looking at his phone, one hand wrapped around an untouched cup of coffee. Behind him, near the emergency exit, stood a man built like a wall, shaved head, dark suit, hands clasped in front of him in a posture I recognized from movies. Security. Serious security. I shouldn't have stared. I knew better. But something about him pulled at something deep in my chest, some long dormant part of me that remembered what it felt like to be seen, to be desired, to matter. "Are you finished with your tray, sir?" My voice came out smaller than intended, scratchy from disuse. Those eyes lifted from his phone and found mine. The impact was physical, like touching a live wire. His gaze moved over my face slowly, cataloging, assessing. I watched his expression shift from annoyance at being interrupted to something else, something that made the air between us crackle. "Yes." His voice was deep, textured like expensive whiskey, with an accent I couldn't place. Not American, but close. Refined. "Though the coffee is terrible, I'm sorry. I didn't make it." Why was I apologizing? Why couldn't I look away? The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, more like acknowledgement of a private joke. "No, I don't imagine you did." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his whole demeanor changed. The casual interest vanished, replaced by something cold and sharp. He stood in one fluid movement, buttoning his jacket. The man by the exit straightened, alert. I reached for his tray at the same moment he turned. My elbow caught his coffee cup. Time slowed as I watched it arc through the air. The terrible cafeteria coffee suspended in a perfect brown wave before gravity remembered its job. It hit his suit jacket, his pristine, probably cost more than my car suit jacket. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I grabbed napkins with shaking hands, reaching toward him before my brain caught up to what I was doing. I didn't mean to. I'll pay for the cleaning, His hand caught my wrist, not hard, but firm enough to stop me mid-panic. His skin was warm, his grip careful but absolute. I froze, looking up into those hazel eyes that had gone completely unreadable. Don't. One word. Quiet. But it carried weight that made my spine straighten. The security guard had moved closer, his hand inside his jacket, reaching for something. Oh God. What kind of man traveled with armed security to a hospital cafeteria? It's fine. The beautiful stranger released my wrist slowly, deliberately. His eyes never left mine. Accidents happen. But the way he said accidents, like he didn't really believe in them, like everything that happened in his world was calculated and controlled, sent ice water through my veins. Marco. He spoke to the security guard without looking away from me. Get the car. Marco hesitated, his eyes assessing me like a threat. Then he nodded once and disappeared through the exit. We stood there in the empty cafeteria, steam still rising from the overturned cup on the floor, the smell of bad coffee mixing with his expensive cologne. I should move, should apologize again, should run. But I couldn't, because he was still looking at me like he was solving a puzzle, like I was something unexpected that had disrupted his carefully ordered world. What's your name? He pulled out his wallet, black leather, thick with cards and cash I glimpsed briefly. He extracted what looked like a business card. Emma. It came out as barely a whisper. Emma Carter. He wrote something on the back of the card with a pen that probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. His handwriting was precise, controlled. When he handed it to me, his fingers brushed mine deliberately. My dry cleaner. Send me the bill for the suit. He paused, his eyes dropping to my lips before returning to hold my gaze, or better yet, deliver it personally. Then he was gone, moving through the exit with the kind of confidence that came from never having to look back, never having to wonder if people would follow. The door swung shut behind him, and I was alone with the spilled coffee spreading across the linoleum like a stain that wouldn't wash out. I looked at the card in my trembling hand. Heavy stock, expensive. No name, just a phone number written in that precise handwriting, and an address in the city's most exclusive district. Emma. What the hell happened here? Karen's screech shattered the silence. You spilled coffee on a customer? Do you have any idea? But I wasn't listening. I was staring at that card, at that address, at the ghost of warmth where his fingers had touched mine. I should throw it away. Should forget this ever happened. Should go back to being invisible, to my safe, small, lonely life, where dangerous men with beautiful faces and armed security didn't look at me like I was something worth noticing. The card felt like fire in my palm. I should throw it away. I tucked it into my pocket instead. The rest of my shift passed in a blur. My hands moved automatically, clearing tables, wiping down surfaces, refilling salt shakers, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. In a charcoal suit. In hazel eyes that had seen through me like I was made of glass. You're distracted. Karen appeared beside me as I was mopping the floor for the third time. That man you spilled coffee on, did he complain? Because if he files something with the hospital administration, he didn't complain. I kept my eyes on the mop. He was actually nice about it. Karen snorted. Nice. Men like that aren't nice, Emma. They're dangerous. Did you see that bodyguard? I've worked here 15 years, and I know trouble when I see it. What do you mean, men like that? She gave me a look that was equal parts pity and exasperation. Rich. Powerful. The kind who don't eat in hospital cafeterias unless they're visiting someone important or conducting business they don't want traced. His type doesn't accidentally end up anywhere. Her words settled into my stomach like stones. Of course. Of course, someone like him wouldn't actually be interested in someone like me. The card was probably just his way of ensuring I didn't sue or cause a scene. Rich people did that. Threw money at problems until they disappeared. I was a problem to be managed, not a person to be seen. The thought should have been depressing. Instead, it felt familiar. Safe. This I knew how to be. I took the bus home as the sun set, painting the city in shades of amber and shadow. My apartment was in the old district, the kind of building where the elevator only worked half the time, and the neighbors' arguments bled through walls thin as paper. I climbed 4 flights of stairs, my legs burning, my mind still replaying that moment when his hand had caught my wrist. Inside my studio, I dropped my bag and stood in the center of the single room that contained my entire life, a futon that served as both bed and couch, a kitchenette with a hot plate and a mini fridge that hummed too loudly, a window that looked out onto a brick wall. This was what 3 years of rebuilding looked like after Marcus had demolished everything. Marcus. God, I hadn't let myself think about him in months. We'd met in college. He was charming, ambitious, always talking about the business he was going to start, the life we were going to build. I'd believed every word, dropped out to support him, worked 2 jobs while he networked, and made connections. When he finally left, he took my savings, my credit cards, and apparently my ability to trust my own judgment. "You're too naive, Emma," he'd said on his way out. "Too soft. The world eats girls like you alive." He was probably right. I pulled the business card from my pocket, studying it in the dim light from my single lamp. The phone number stared back at me, each digit a question I was too afraid to answer. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Dinner Sunday? Your sister is bringing her new boyfriend. Would be nice if you came with someone for once." I deleted it without responding. Another text, this one from an unknown number. "Still working at that dead-end job? Saw you on Instagram. You look tired. M. Marcus." Somehow he'd gotten my new number. The text was classic him, a knife disguised as concern, designed to make me feel small. I blocked the number, but the damage was done. The familiar ache spread through my chest, that hollow feeling that I'd learned to carry like a second skeleton. So, still lonely, I could almost hear his laugh. My eyes went back to the card, to that address in the district where people like me didn't exist, except to serve people like him. I should throw it away. Whatever game this was, whatever moment of interest I'd sparked in those hazel eyes, it wasn't real. Men like that didn't see women like me. We were part of the scenery, temporary and forgettable, but my fingers wouldn't let go of the card. What if? 2 words I'd trained myself never to think. What if things could be different? What if I could be someone else, someone visible, someone who mattered? What if, just once, I took a risk that wasn't carefully calculated for maximum safety and minimum disappointment? I looked at my reflection in the darkened window. A ghost. Looking back at a ghost. Before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed my laptop and searched the address. It brought up an exclusive dry cleaning service in the heart of the financial district. 5-star reviews. Serving the city's elite for over 30 years. Appointments required. My hands shook as I typed out an email, deleted it, typed it again. "Dear Sir Madam, I need to inquire about cleaning costs for a suit damaged at the Memorial Hospital cafeteria today." No. Too formal. Too cowardly. I pulled out my phone instead, stared at that number until the digits blurred. Just a text. That was safe. Professional. "This is Emma from the hospital. I'd like to pay for the dry cleaning. Please send me the bill." I hit send before fear could stop me. 3 minutes passed. 5, 10. My phone buzzed. "I don't want your money, Emma." My heart stopped. Started again, faster. "Then what do you want?" The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Deliver the bill personally. Tomorrow. 8 p.m. The address on the card. I stared at the message, my pulse pounding in my throat. This was insane. I didn't know this man. Didn't know anything about him except that he wore expensive suits, traveled with armed security, and looked at me like he could see every secret I'd ever tried to bury. "I work until 7. Then 8:30. Don't be late. Not a request. A command. I should say no, should block this number too. should choose safety over the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, someone had finally seen me. Okay. One word. One terrible, irrevocable decision. His response came immediately. Good girl. 2 words that shouldn't have sent heat flooding through me, that shouldn't have made me feel more alive than I had in 3 years of careful, invisible existence. I set the phone down with shaking hands and looked at my reflection again. The ghost was smiling. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, the sharp angles, the predatory intelligence behind those hazel eyes, the way his hand had wrapped around my wrist with such casual certainty. Like he already owned me, like he'd known I would say yes before I'd even made the decision myself. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely and stood under the shower until the water ran cold. The ancient pipes groaned and shuddered, a sound as familiar as my own heartbeat. I watched the water circle the drain and tried to convince myself I could still back out. Send a text. Make an excuse. Return to the safety of invisibility. But even as I thought it, I was reaching for the only dress I owned that wasn't stained or threadbare, a simple black thing I'd bought for Marcus's mother's funeral 4 years ago. It still fit, though it hung a little looser now. 3 years of stress and cafeteria food had carved away any softness I'd once carried. Work crawled by with agonizing slowness. Every time the cafeteria doors swung open, my heart jumped, expecting to see him. Ridiculous. Men like that didn't return to places like this. They moved through the world once, leaving impact craters, and never looked back. You seem different today, Karen observed around 3 p.m., her eyes narrowed with suspicion. You're not planning to quit, are you? Because if you are, you need to give 2 weeks' notice. I'm not quitting. The words tasted like ash, because wasn't that exactly what I was doing? Not quitting the job, maybe, but quitting this version of myself. This safe, small, invisible life. Good, because girls like you don't have a lot of options. She walked away, leaving that truth hanging in the air like smoke. Girls like you. Everyone seemed so certain about what kind of girl I was. Marcus had been certain, too soft, too naive. My mother was certain, disappointing, directionless. Even I had been certain, until a man in a charcoal suit looked at me like I was a puzzle worth solving. At 7 p.m., I clocked out with shaking hands. The locker room was empty, which meant no one saw me change out of my scrubs and into the black dress. No one saw me apply the ancient tube of lipstick I'd found in my purse, the color too dark, but better than nothing. No one saw me stare at my reflection in the cracked mirror and barely recognize the woman looking back. She looked terrified. She looked alive. The address led me to a building I'd passed 1,000 times but never really seen. Glass and steel rising into the darkening sky, the kind of architecture that made a statement about power and permanence. The lobby was all marble and soft lighting, with a security desk manned by someone who looked like Marco's twin. Same build, same cold assessment in his eyes. I'm here to see... I realized I didn't have a name, just a phone number and an address and the ghost of a touch on my wrist. I have an appointment. Emma Carter. The security guard didn't even check a list. He just nodded once and gestured to the elevators. Penthouse. You're expected. Expected. The word sent electricity down my spine. The elevator was lined with mirrors, multiplying my reflection into infinity. An infinite number of Emmas, all wearing the same cheap dress, all clutching the same worn purse, all trying to convince themselves this was a good idea. The numbers climbed. 10, 20, 30. My ears popped. The city fell away below me until I was floating in a column of glass and steel, suspended between earth and sky. The doors opened directly into a penthouse that stole my breath, floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the space, offering a view of the city that made it look like a galaxy of light spreading to the horizon. The furniture was minimal, but clearly expensive. Leather and dark wood and clean lines. Modern art on the walls that I didn't understand, but knew cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. The air smelled like him, that cedar and smoke cologne that had haunted me since yesterday. Ms. Carter. Marco appeared from a hallway, his expression unreadable. Mr. Salvatore is finishing a call. Please sit. Salvatore. Finally, a name to put to the face that had invaded my dreams. I perched on the edge of a leather sofa that probably cost more than my car, back when I'd had a car. My hands twisted in my lap, and I forced them still, forced myself to breathe. This was fine. Professional. I was just here to discuss dry cleaning costs, and then I'd leave and... Emma. His voice came from behind me, and I stood too quickly, nearly stumbling. He was there suddenly, closer than expected, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Casual. Devastating. Those hazel eyes tracked over me slowly, taking in the cheap dress, the too dark lipstick, the way I couldn't quite meet his gaze. You came. He sounded almost surprised, almost pleased. You told me to. The words came out sharper than intended, defensive. His mouth curved, that not-quite smile that made my stomach flip. I did. But I wasn't certain you'd listen. I don't usually. Why was I telling him this? Listen, I mean, to men who give me commands. No? He moved past me to a bar cart near the windows, his movements fluid and controlled. Then why did you listen to me? Because you looked at me like I was visible. Like I mattered. Like I was more than the sum of my mistakes and failures. I wanted to pay for the suit, I said instead. He poured 2 glasses of something amber, handed me one. Our fingers brushed again. Deliberate, I was certain now. Everything about him was deliberate. The suit cost $12,000, he said, watching me over the rim of his glass. Can you afford that, Emma? The number hit me like a physical blow. 12,000. That was, I couldn't even process it. 6 months of rent, a year of groceries, more money than I'd ever had in my bank account at once. My voice failed. The glass trembled in my hand. He took it from me gently, set both glasses down. Then he was close. So close I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the flecks of gold in those hazel eyes. I don't want your money, Emma. His voice was low, intimate. I told you that. Then what do you want? The question came out as barely a whisper. His hand came up, and I froze. He traced one finger along my jaw, so light it might have been my imagination, except for the trail of fire it left behind. I want to know why you're so afraid. His thumb brushed my lower lip, smudging the too dark lipstick. I want to know who taught you to make yourself invisible. I want to know what you taste like when you finally let yourself feel something. My breath caught. This was insane. I should leave. Should run back to my safe, small life, where men didn't look at me like this, didn't touch me like I was something precious and breakable and worth claiming. I don't even know you, I managed. No. His agreement was soft, but you want to. I saw it yesterday. The way you looked at me when you thought I wasn't paying attention. The way you're looking at me now, like you can't decide if I'm salvation or damnation. Which are you? The question escaped before I could stop it. His smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Both, probably. Does that scare you? Yes. Honesty felt like jumping off a cliff. Good. His hand slid to the back of my neck, fingers tangling in my hair. Fear means you're paying attention. Fear means you're smart enough to recognize danger when it's standing in front of you. Are you dangerous? My heart was trying to escape my chest. Very. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. But not to you, Emma. Never to you. The lie was beautiful. I wanted to believe it so badly I could taste it. Sweet and poisonous on my tongue. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again, insistent. With a sound of frustration, he stepped back, and the sudden absence of his heat left me cold. He pulled the phone from his pocket, glanced at the screen, and his whole expression changed. The warmth vanished, replaced by something arctic and lethal. I need to take this. He was already moving toward the hallway. Marco will get you anything you need. Don't leave. Then he was gone, and I was alone in a penthouse that cost more than every place I'd ever lived combined, with a bodyguard watching me like I might steal the silverware. I walked to the windows on shaking legs. The city sprawled below, beautiful and indifferent. Somewhere down there was my studio apartment, my bus route, my invisible life. It looked very small from up here, I looked very small. He doesn't usually bring women here. Marco's voice startled me. He'd moved silently to stand near the bar, his expression still unreadable. This is his private space. Most business happens elsewhere. I didn't know how to finish that sentence. Not business, not a woman, not supposed to be here. I know. Something almost like sympathy crossed his face. That's what concerns me. Before I could ask what he meant, raised voices echoed from down the hallway. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. Anger, barely controlled. Then a crash, like something expensive being thrown against a wall. Marco didn't even flinch. Excuse me. He disappeared down the hallway. I should leave. This was clearly a mistake. Whatever was happening down that hallway, whatever world Salvatore inhabited, it wasn't mine. I didn't belong in penthouses with $12,000 suits and bodyguards and violence simmering just beneath the surface of expensive cologne and tailored clothes. But I didn't move. Couldn't move. Because somewhere between yesterday and today, between invisibility and being seen, I'd become someone who wanted to know what happened next. More than she wanted to be safe. The voices stopped. Footsteps approached. Salvatore emerged from the hallway, his expression carefully blank, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands were clenched into fists. Behind him, Marco hovered like a dark shadow. I apologize. His voice was too controlled, each word measured. Something came up. Business. It's fine. It wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. I should go anyway. This was... Stay. Not a command this time. A request. Almost a plea. Please, just give me a moment. He moved to the bar, poured himself a drink, and downed it in one swallow. I watched the muscles in his throat work. Watched him close his eyes and breathe like a man trying to cage something wild and violent. Who was that? I asked before I could stop myself. On the phone. His eyes opened, found mine. Someone from my past. Someone who should know better than to make demands. What kind of demands? He set the glass down carefully, too carefully. The kind that get people hurt. The words hung between us, heavy with implication. This was my chance, my moment to thank him for the drink, excuse myself, and return to my safe, lonely life. Be smart. Be invisible. Be safe. Instead, I walked toward him. His eyes tracked every step, dark and hungry and dangerous. When I was close enough to feel his heat again, close enough to smell the whiskey on his breath mixed with that cedar cologne, I stopped. I should be afraid of you, I said. Yes. His agreement was immediate, but I'm not. The lie tasted strange on my tongue. Or maybe I am, but not the way you think. How then? His hand came up, cupped my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything I'd just witnessed. I'm afraid you'll make me want things. My voice broke. Things I can't have. Things that will destroy me when they're taken away. Understanding flickered in his eyes. Someone hurt you. Someone taught me not to hope. The confession fell from my lips like a stone into still water, creating ripples I couldn't control. Taught me that wanting more than I deserve only leads to pain. And what do you think you deserve, Emma? His thumb traced my cheekbone, so gentle it made my chest ache. Nothing. The word was barely audible. I deserve nothing. Something fierce and protective flashed across his face. Who told you that? Everyone. I tried to step back, but his hand tightened, holding me in place. My ex. My family. The world. They're probably right. They're wrong. His voice was steel wrapped in silk. And I'm going to prove it to you. Before I could ask how, his mouth was on mine. The kiss was nothing like I expected. Not gentle, not careful. It was claiming, possessive, a brand that seared through every defense I'd built over 3 years of making myself small. His hand fisted in my hair, angling my head exactly where he wanted it. His other arm wrapping around my waist to pull me flush against him. I should push him away. Should maintain some distance, some control. Instead, I kissed him back like a drowning woman finding air. He tasted like whiskey and danger, and the promise of things I'd convinced myself I didn't need. His body was hard against mine, all controlled strength and barely leashed power. When he finally pulled back, We were both breathing hard, and I was clinging to his shirt like it was the only thing keeping me upright. Emma. My name on his lips sounded like a prayer, like a threat, like the beginning of something that would either save me or destroy me, and I wasn't sure there was a difference anymore. I don't understand this, I whispered against his mouth, any of this. Why me? I'm nobody. I work in a cafeteria. I live in a studio with broken pipes. I'm mine. The word was absolute, final. From the moment you looked at me with those eyes that see too much and expect too little, you're mine, Emma Carter, and I protect what's mine. I woke up in a bed that wasn't mine. For a disorienting moment, panic clawed at my throat. The sheets were too soft, Egyptian cotton that whispered against my skin like water. The mattress cradled my body instead of fighting it. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in shades of gold I'd forgotten existed. Then memory crashed back, the kiss. His hands on me. The way he'd pulled back just when I thought I might dissolve completely. His eyes dark with something that looked like restraint. Not like this, he'd said, his voice rough. Not when you're still deciding if you trust me. He'd called Marco to drive me home. I'd stumbled into my studio apartment at midnight, my lips still swollen, my mind spinning. I'd fallen asleep in my clothes, and now I was in his bed. I sat up too fast, the room tilting. I was wearing one of his shirts, white, enormous on me, smelling like cedar and him. My dress was folded neatly on a chair near the window. My phone sat on the nightstand, plugged into a charger I didn't own. The bedroom door opened, and Marco appeared with a tray. Coffee, fruit, pastries that looked like they'd been flown in from Paris. You're awake. He set the tray on the bed with surprising gentleness for a man built like a tank. Mr. Salvatore asked me to ensure you ate something. How did I get here? My voice came out hoarse. I was in my apartment. You were. Marco's expression remained neutral. You called him at 3 a.m., don't you remember? I didn't. The night was a blur of sleeplessness and obsessive thoughts, and, oh God, I'd called him. What had I said? You were crying, Marco continued, as if reading my horror. Something about your ex-boyfriend texting you. Mr. Salvatore sent me to collect you. You fell asleep in the car. The memory surfaced slowly, painfully. Marcus. Another text, nastier this time. A picture of him with someone new, someone beautiful and put together, with a caption that had gutted me. Upgraded. You should try it sometime. I'd blocked that number too. Then I'd done something I'd never done before. I'd reached out. Called the one person who'd looked at me like I mattered. I shouldn't be here. I pushed the covers back, searching for my shoes. I need to go. I have work. You called in sick. Marco handed me the coffee. Drink. Boss's orders. I can't just... But the coffee was already in my hands, warm and perfect, and probably cost more than my hourly wage. I took a sip and nearly groaned. Where is he? Handling business. He'll be back this afternoon. Marco moved to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I've worked for him for 8 years. I've never seen him like this. Whatever you did, whatever you are to him, it's different. Different how? But Marco was already gone, leaving me alone with questions that multiplied like bacteria. I found my way to the bathroom, marble and chrome, and a shower with enough jets to launch a rocket. I shouldn't use it. Shouldn't make myself comfortable in a world that wasn't mine. But my reflection in the mirror showed a woman who'd slept in makeup and yesterday's kiss, and I couldn't go to work looking like this. The shower was a religious experience. Water pressure I didn't know existed. Shampoo that smelled like flowers I couldn't name. By the time I emerged, wrapped in a towel that probably cost more than my security deposit, I almost felt human again. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, the closet. Second door. Everything should fit. D.D. Salvatore's first name started with D. I opened the closet door with trembling hands. Inside were clothes. Women's clothes. All in my size, still with tags attached. Jeans that looked designer. Shirts and fabrics I'd only touched while folding laundry for rich hospital donors. A leather jacket that made my cheap dress look like a costume. Another text. Wear whatever you want. Marco will take you wherever you need to go. We'll talk when I return. I should be angry. This was controlling, presumptuous. He'd brought me here without my full consent, bought me clothes without asking, made decisions about my life like he had the right. But the anger wouldn't come. Instead, there was something else. Something warm and dangerous that felt like being cared for, like mattering enough for someone to notice I needed things before I asked. I chose jeans and a soft gray sweater, both fitting perfectly. The leather jacket felt like armor. Marco drove me to the hospital in a black SUV with tinted windows. People stared as I got out, and I realized how I must look, emerging from a vehicle that screamed money, wearing clothes that whispered wealth. Karen's eyes nearly fell out of her skull when I walked into the cafeteria. "What the hell happened to you?" She circled me like a predator. "You call in sick, then show up looking like, where did you get those clothes?" "A friend lent them to me." The lie felt thin. "What friend?" "You don't have friends." Her eyes narrowed. "This is about that man, isn't it? The one with the bodyguard." "Emma, what did you do?" "Nothing. Everything. I need to get to work." But she grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Listen to me. Men like that don't date girls like us. They use us. They take what they want and throw us away when something shinier comes along. I've seen it 100 times. You don't know him. Neither do you." Her voice rose, drawing looks from the early lunch crowd. "Wake up, Emma. Whatever fantasy you're living, it's going to end badly. It always does." I pulled my arm free and walked away, but her words burrowed under my skin like splinters. The shift dragged. Every time I caught my reflection in the steel counters, I saw someone wearing a costume. Someone playing dress-up in a life that wasn't hers. By 3 p.m., the clothes felt like they were suffocating me. My phone buzzed. "How's work?" His text felt like a lifeline and a trap simultaneously. "Fine. When can we talk? Leaving a meeting now. Come to the penthouse when you're done, please." That please undid something in my chest. Okay. Marco was waiting outside the hospital at 7 p.m. sharp, like he'd been monitoring my shift schedule. The ride to the penthouse was silent, but I felt his eyes on me in the rearview mirror. "He's not what you think," Marco said finally, as we pulled up to the building. "People see the money, the power, the danger. They don't see the rest." "What's the rest?" "A man who takes care of his people. Who has a code, even if it's not one the law would recognize. Who doesn't give his trust easily, but once he does..." Marco met my eyes in the mirror. He'd burn the world down to protect what's his. The elevator ride felt longer this time, my heart climbing into my throat. The doors opened to the penthouse, and he was there, standing by the windows with his back to me, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what he wants." Salvatore's voice was ice. "Tell him if he contacts her again, I'll personally ensure he regrets it. Are we clear?" A pause. "Good." He turned as he ended the call, and the cold fury in his eyes melted when he saw me. In 3 strides he was there, pulling me against him like he'd been holding his breath until this moment. "Emma." My name was a sigh against my hair. "I'm sorry about last night. Bringing you here without..." "Who were you talking about?" I pulled back enough to see his face. "Who contacted who?" His jaw tightened. "Your ex-boyfriend, Marcus." The world tilted. What did you do?" "I had him looked into after you called me last night." His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "He's been harassing you for months. Different numbers, different accounts. The texts, the emails. I made it clear that stops now." "You had no right?" "I had every right." His voice was steel. "You're mine to protect. That means anyone who hurts you answers to me. I'm not yours." The words burst out, too loud, too desperate. "I don't even know you. I don't know your full name, what you do, why you have bodyguards, why you..." "Dante," he cut me off. "Dante Salvatore. And you want to know what I do? I run the most powerful organization in this city. Import, export, real estate, investments, some of it legal. Most of it in the gray areas the law pretends don't exist. I employ 300 people. I have enemies who would kill me in my sleep if they could. And I have Marco and 6 others like him, because people have tried. The truth hung between us like a blade. You're a criminal. My voice was hollow. I'm a businessman who operates outside conventional rules. His hands dropped from my face, but he didn't step back. Does that scare you? It should. God. It should terrify me. But all I could think about was the way he'd said, "You're mine to protect." Like it was absolute. Like it was sacred. What do you want from me? The question came out broken. Really? Because Karen's right. Men like you don't want women like me. So what is this? Some kind of game? A charity case? Do you get off on saving broken things? His hand shot out, gripping my chin. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make me listen. You want to know what I want? His voice was dangerous, intimate. I want to erase every person who made you believe you're broken. I want to hunt down every man who taught you to make yourself small and show them what fear really looks like. I want to wake up every morning with you in my bed and fall asleep every night knowing you're safe. I want to give you everything you've been told you don't deserve and watch you finally understand your own worth. Tears burned behind my eyes. Why? Because 2 days ago, a woman spilled coffee on me and looked at me like she could see straight through the armor. Because when I touched her wrist, she didn't flinch or flirt. She just held still like she was waiting to see if I'd be gentle or cruel. Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about her since. You don't know me, I whispered. Then let me. He pulled me closer, his forehead resting against mine. Let me know every scar, every fear, every dream you've buried. Let me prove that not every man who sees you will try to break you. And if you do, break me, then you put me back together first. His lips brushed mine, feather light. Fair trade. The kiss started gentle but deepened quickly, became consuming. His hands tangled in my hair, my fingers clutched his shirt, and for a moment the world narrowed to just this. His mouth on mine, his heart pounding against my palm. The taste of possibility on my tongue. A phone rang. Not his. Mine. I pulled back, breathless, and fumbled for my phone. My thumb hovered over
Unknown
decline
number.
But something made me answer. Hello? Is this Emma Carter? A woman's voice, professional but tight with emotion. Yes? This is Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about Marcus Chen. You're listed as his emergency contact. My blood turned to ice. What? No, we're not together anymore. Haven't been for 3 years. I understand, but you're still listed in his file. He was brought in 20 minutes ago. Car accident. He's asking for you. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. Dante caught it, pressed it back against my ear, his eyes locked on mine. Is he going to be okay? A pause. Perhaps you should come down. He's stable, but just come down. The line went dead. I looked up at Dante, and whatever he saw in my face made his expression go dark. What happened? Marcus. He's in the hospital. Car accident. My voice broke. He's asking for me. Dante's jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind. You're not going. I have to. No. The word was absolute. This is a trap, Emma. Can't you see that? A convenient accident the same day I warn him to stay away from you? You think The implications were too horrible. No. Marcus is a lot of things, but he wouldn't. You don't know what men do when they're desperate. Dante's hands framed my face again. When they've lost something they think belongs to them. Trust me on this. And if you're wrong, if he's really hurt and I don't go... Guilt was already eating at me. I can't live with that. Then I'm coming with you. Not a request. Dante, those are the terms, Emma. You want to go? Fine. But I'm not letting you walk into danger alone. I should argue. Should tell him he was being controlling and paranoid. But I didn't. Because part of me, the part that had learned to recognize danger the hard way, thought he might be right. The hospital looked different at night. The fluorescent lights seemed harsher, casting shadows that turned familiar hallways into mazes. Dante moved beside me like a predator in designer clothes. Marco trailing 3 steps behind, his hand inside his jacket where I knew a gun waited. A gun. In the hospital where I worked. where I'd served soup and cleared tables and made myself invisible for 3 years. Nothing felt real anymore. "Room 347, the nurse at the desk said, barely looking up. Then she did a double take, recognition sparking in her eyes as she saw me. "Emma? What are you doing here? I thought you worked days." "Visiting someone." I kept walking before she could ask more questions, before the gossip could start spreading through the staff like wildfire. Dante's hand settled on the small of my back, possessive and grounding. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Even as I said it, I wasn't sure why. Marcus had destroyed me, left me with nothing but debt and the kind of scars that didn't show on skin. I owed him nothing, but the girl I'd been 3 years ago, the one who'd loved him, who'd believed his promises, she needed closure. She needed to see for herself that he was okay, that she hadn't become the kind of person who ignored someone in need, even someone who'd hurt her. Room 347's door was partially open. I could hear voices inside, Marcus, and someone else. A woman. I pushed the door wider. Marcus lay in the hospital bed, his arm in a sling, a bandage across his forehead. He looked the same, handsome in that calculated way, dark hair perfectly styled even in a hospital gown. That smile that had once made me feel chosen, now making my stomach turn. But it was the woman sitting beside his bed that made me freeze. She was beautiful, model beautiful, the kind of polished perfection I'd never achieve if I had 1,000 years and unlimited money. Her hand rested on Marcus's uninjured arm, proprietary and comfortable. "Emma." Marcus's smile widened when he saw me. "You came. I wasn't sure you would. They said you were hurt, that you asked for me." I stayed in the doorway, Dante a solid presence beside me. "What happened?" "Car accident. Some drunk driver ran a red light." He gestured vaguely at his injuries. "Could have been worse. But lying here, thinking I might die." His eyes found mine, and I saw the calculation in them. I realized I never apologized for how things ended between us, for the things I took. Took? The woman beside him stiffened. "Marcus, what is he talking about?" "Nothing, baby. This is just Emma. I told you about her." His tone was dismissive, like I was a footnote in his story. "We dated in college. It didn't work out." Didn't work out. 3 years, condensed into 4 words that erased everything. My dropped classes, my maxed credit cards, the nights I'd worked double shifts while he networked, the savings account he'd drained the day he left. That's an interesting way to describe theft. Dante's voice cut through the room like a blade. He stepped forward, and I saw Marcus notice him for the first time. Saw the calculation turn to uncertainty, then to fear. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" "Someone who doesn't appreciate liars." Dante's smile was sharp enough to cut. "You weren't in a car accident, Marcus. You staged this. Called Emma yourself, pretending to be the hospital. Thought she'd come running, didn't you? Thought she was still the naive girl you could manipulate." Marcus's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about. Room 347 is in the orthopedic wing. You have superficial injuries, no broken bones, no concussion serious enough to warrant admission." Dante pulled out his phone, showed Marcus something on the screen. "But you checked yourself in 2 hours ago, complained of arm pain and dizziness. Conveniently, right after I had someone deliver a message about leaving Emma alone." The woman stood up, her designer bag clutched to her chest. "Marcus? What is he talking about?" "Nothing. He's crazy." "The nurse who checked you in?" Dante continued, relentless. "She's worked here 15 years. Very thorough with records. Including the part where you specifically requested they call Emma Carter as your emergency contact, even though you had to forge the paperwork to make that happen." My stomach dropped. "You lied. There was no accident. You just..." "The betrayal shouldn't hurt anymore, but it did." "Why?" "Because I saw the texts." Marcus's facade cracked, showing the desperation underneath. "You blocked me, but I saw them. Saw you with him." He glared at Dante. "You think you can just replace me? Just upgrade like I'm nothing? You are nothing." The words came out of me cold and clear. "You were nothing 3 years ago when you stole from me. You're nothing now. And the only reason I'm here is because I was stupid enough to believe you might actually need help." "Emma, wait." He tried to sit up, winced. I know I made mistakes, but we had something real. We had nothing. You used me. And when I had nothing left to give, you threw me away. I turned to leave, then stopped. Don't contact me again. Don't text. Don't call. Don't show up at my work. Don't think about me. Just exist somewhere I'm not. We clear? His face twisted with rage. You think you're better now? Because you found some rich guy to take care of you? You're still the same pathetic. Dante moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was beside me. The next he had Marcus by the throat, lifting him slightly off the bed. The woman screamed. Somewhere down the hall, I heard footsteps running. Choose your next words very carefully. Dante's voice was calm, almost conversational. Because they might be your last, Dante. I touched his arm. He's not worth it. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Dante released Marcus, who collapsed back against the pillows, gasping. You're right. He's not. Dante straightened his jacket, his expression going cold. But Emma? If I hear you've contacted her again, if I even hear you've thought about contacting her, I won't be this civilized. Understand? Marcus could only nod, his eyes wide with genuine fear. Marco appeared in the doorway, subtly blocking the nurses who'd come running. We should go, boss. Dante took my hand and led me out of the room, past the confused nurses, past Karen who was staring from the nurses' station with her mouth open, past the whispers that were already starting. I didn't care. Let them talk. Let them wonder. I was done being invisible. We didn't go back to the penthouse. Marco drove us to a house I'd never seen before. Smaller than the penthouse, but no less luxurious, tucked away in a gated community where money whispered instead of shouted. Safe house, Dante explained as we pulled up. Somewhere private. We need to talk. Inside, the house was warm and lived in. Photos on the mantel. Dante as a child with a woman who had his eyes, a man with a stern face but kind smile, a family I'd never asked about. Dante poured us both drinks, handed me one, then stood by the fireplace looking like he was deciding how much truth I could handle. My father was Antonio Salvatore, he said finally. You probably haven't heard of him, but 20 years ago his name meant something in this city. He built an empire from nothing, shipping, imports, real estate. Some of it legal, most of it not. I sank onto the couch, the drink untouched in my hands. What happened to him? Betrayal. His best friend, his business partner, a man he'd known since childhood, sold information to the feds. My father went to prison. He died there when I was 18. Dante's voice was flat, but I could hear the old pain underneath. My mother followed 6 months later. They said it was cancer, but I know better. She died of a broken heart. Dante. I rebuilt everything he lost, made it bigger, stronger, more protected. I learned from his mistakes. Never trust completely. Never let anyone get close enough to destroy you. He turned to face me, and his eyes were raw. And then you spilled coffee on me and looked at me like I was just a man, not a legacy or a threat or an opportunity. Just a man. You are just a man. I set the drink down and went to him. A man with a lot of baggage and questionable business practices, but still just a man. His laugh was hollow. I've done things, Emma. Terrible things. Things that would make you run if you knew the details. Then don't tell me the details. I took his face in my hands, making him look at me. I'm not asking you to confess your sins. I'm asking you to be honest about what this is. What you want from me. I want everything. His hands covered mine. I want to wake up with you. I want to solve your problems and create new ones. I want to argue and make up and build something real. I want... He stopped, his jaw clenching. I want things I have no right to want from you. Like what? Like forever. The word was raw. Like a life where you don't have to work in a cafeteria unless you want to. Where you can go back to school, pursue dreams you gave up. Where you're safe and protected and cherished. Where no one ever makes you feel invisible again. My heart was trying to break out of my chest. That's a lot for someone you met 2 days ago. I know. He pulled me closer. I know this is crazy. I know I'm moving too fast. But Emma, I've spent 15 years building walls, and you walked through them like they were made of paper. So yes, it's crazy. But it's also real. The realest thing I've felt since my parents died. I should slow this down, should be practical, should remember all the ways this could go wrong. Instead, I kissed him. This kiss was different from the others. Deeper, more desperate, like we were both trying to convince ourselves this was real. His hands roamed my back, tangled in my hair, pulled me flush against him until I could feel every hard plane of his body. Stay, he breathed against my mouth. Stay here tonight, tomorrow, as long as you want. Let me show you what your life could be. What if I get used to it? The fear escaped before I could stop it. What if I get used to this to you, and then it ends? Then we deal with it when it happens. His forehead pressed against mine. But Emma, I'm not Marcus. I'm not going to use you and throw you away. When I say you're mine, I mean it. For as long as you'll have me, for as long as you'll have me, not forever. Not promises he couldn't keep, just honest, terrifying possibility. Okay? The word felt like jumping off a cliff. Okay, I'll stay. That night, I slept in his arms in a guest bedroom with sheets that smelled like lavender and safety. He held me like I was something precious, his body curved protectively around mine, his breath warm against my neck. I should have been thinking about work tomorrow, about explanations I'd need to give, about how fast everything was moving. Instead, I thought about the photos on the mantel, about a boy who'd lost everything and built an empire from the ashes. About the way he looked at me like I was the answer to a question he'd stopped asking. Emma? His voice was drowsy in the darkness. Yeah? Thank you. For staying. For not running when you learned the truth. The truth is relative. I laced my fingers through his. All I know is you make me feel visible. And I haven't felt that in a long time. His arms tightened around me. You're more than visible, Emma. You're unforgettable. I fell asleep believing him. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. Dante's side of the bed was empty but still warm. I found a robe draped over a chair. Silk, expensive. Perfectly my size like everything else he gave me. Following the coffee smell led me to a kitchen straight out of a magazine. Dante stood at the stove, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that showed off muscles I'd only felt through expensive suits. He looked younger like this, less dangerous, almost normal. Morning. He turned with a smile that made my stomach flip. I made breakfast. Well, Marco made breakfast. I supervised. Marco appeared from a pantry, rolling his eyes. Boss can't cook to save his life. I have people for that, Dante said, unbothered. He pulled me into his arms, kissed me like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. How did you sleep? Better than I have in years. The truth tasted strange. What time is it? 9. I called the hospital, told them you're taking a few days off. Family emergency. I pulled back. You can't just... I need that job, Dante. You need that specific job, or you need a job. His hands settled on my hips. Because if it's about money, about independence, we can figure that out. But Emma, that place doesn't deserve you. The way they treat you, the way that supervisor talks to you. How do you know how Karen talks to me? He had the grace to look slightly guilty. I may have had someone look into your workplace situation after I saw how exhausted you were that first day. I didn't know whether to be angry or touched. You can't just investigate my life without permission. I can't protect you without information. His expression went serious. And yes, I know that sounds controlling. I know I'm overstepping. But Emma, keeping you safe, it's not optional for me. It's as necessary as breathing. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his whole demeanor changed, going cold and sharp. I need to take this. Marco, stay with her. He disappeared into another room, and I heard his voice through the door. Low, dangerous, speaking in rapid Italian that sent chills down my spine. Marco busied himself with breakfast plates, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. What's wrong? I asked. He hesitated. Someone's been asking questions about you, about your connection to the boss. Ice flooded my veins. What kind of questions? The kind that mean someone noticed you matter to him. And in our world, Emma, Marco's eyes were sympathetic. That makes you a target. The word target echoed in my head like a gunshot. Dante returned minutes later, his expression carved from stone. He pulled me into his arms without a word, holding me so tight I could barely breathe, like he was trying to absorb me into his body where nothing could touch me. We need to talk. His voice was rough against my hair. Marco excused himself, disappearing with the kind of tactical retreat that said he'd heard this conversation before. Dante led me to the living room, sat me on the couch, then paced like a caged animal, deciding whether to fight or flee. "There's a man," he said finally. "Viktor Kozlov. Russian, ruthless, and he's been trying to move into my territory for 2 years. I've blocked him at every turn." He stopped pacing, faced me. "This morning one of my informants told me Viktor's people have been watching you, taking pictures, following you to and from work." The room tilted. "For how long?" "Since the day after we met." His hands clenched into fists. "He knows you matter to me, and in my world, that makes you leverage. A weakness he can exploit." I stood on shaking legs. So this was a mistake. Us. I should go back to my life, disappear again. No. The word was absolute. He crossed to me in 2 strides, his hands framing my face. "You're not disappearing. You're not going back to that apartment where you're vulnerable, where I can't protect you properly. You're staying here, or at the penthouse, or wherever I can keep you safe." "That's not a life, Dante. That's a prison with expensive furniture. It's temporary." But his eyes told a different story. "Just until I handle Viktor." Handle? The implications made my stomach turn. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I pulled away from him, my mind racing. This was insane. I'd known him 3 days, and already I was being followed by Russian mobsters, sleeping in safe houses, having my life rearranged by a man whose solution to problems probably involved violence I didn't want to imagine. "I need air." I headed for the door. "Emma. I need to think." The words came out too loud. "I need 5 minutes where someone isn't making decisions for me, where I'm not choosing between being invisible or being a target. 5 minutes, Dante. Please." He let me go, but I felt his eyes on me as I stepped into the backyard. The garden was beautiful, manicured hedges, flowering plants I couldn't name, a fountain that whispered instead of shouted. I sank onto a stone bench and tried to remember how to breathe. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Sunday dinner. Your sister's engaged. Try to be happy for her." Another from an unknown number. "Pretty flowers. Shame if something happened to them." The phone slipped from my nerveless fingers. Dante was there instantly, appearing from nowhere with Marco at his heels. He picked up my phone, read the message, and something terrifying crossed his face. "Marco, get the team. Now." His voice was eerily calm. "And find out how they got this number." "Dante, what?" "They're here. Watching. Close enough to see you in the garden." He pulled me toward the house, his body between me and the perimeter. "Inside. Now." The next hour was chaos. Men I'd never seen before materialized in the house, all wearing dark suits and carrying weapons they didn't bother hiding. Dante was on the phone constantly, barking orders in English and Italian, his expression growing darker with each call. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket someone had given me, watching my safe, invisible life crumble into something unrecognizable. Marco appeared with a laptop. "Boss, you need to see this." Dante looked at the screen, and I watched all color drain from his face. He closed the laptop carefully, too carefully. Then he turned to me with eyes that held something I'd never seen before, fear. "Emma, I need you to listen very carefully." He knelt in front of me, his hands covering mine. "Viktor doesn't just want to use you as leverage. He wants..." His voice broke. "He wants revenge for something my father did to his father 20 years ago. And he thinks taking you, hurting you, will hurt me the way his father was hurt." "What did your father do?" The question came out whispered. "He killed Viktor's father, in self-defense, but Viktor doesn't see it that way. He's been waiting for the right moment, the right weakness." Dante's grip tightened. And I gave it to him. By caring about you. By making you visible. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent 3 years being invisible to protect myself from pain. 3 days of being seen, and I was in more danger than I'd ever imagined. So what happens now? Now I end this. He stood, his expression going cold and hard. Marco, triple security here. No one in or out without my explicit approval. And get Emma everything she needs. Clothes, toiletries, anything. She's not leaving this house until Victor is handled. How long will that take? My voice sounded small. As long as it takes. He kissed my forehead, and it felt like goodbye. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. You didn't drag me. I walked in with my eyes open. Your eyes weren't open enough. He headed for the door, Marco and the others falling in behind him like a dark tide. Stay inside. Stay safe. And Emma, he turned back, and the vulnerability in his eyes shattered something in my chest. If something happens to me, Marco will make sure you're protected. You'll be taken care of, financially, and don't. I stood, the blanket falling away. Don't talk like you're not coming back. I have to be realistic. No. I crossed to him, grabbed his shirt like I could anchor him to this moment. You don't get to make me feel visible. Make me want things. Make me believe in possibilities and then disappear. You don't get to be another person who leaves. Emma, promise me. Tears burned behind my eyes. Promise you'll come back. Promise this isn't... My voice broke. Promise. He pulled me into his arms, and I felt him trembling. I promise. I swear on my parents' graves, I will come back to you. Then he was gone, and I was alone with Marco and 6 armed guards in a house that suddenly felt like exactly what I'd feared. A beautiful prison. 3 days passed, like 3 years. I wasn't allowed outside, wasn't allowed to call anyone except Dante. And those calls were brief, cryptic. I'm fine. It's almost over. Stay safe. Marco tried to keep me occupied. Brought me books, movies, even got someone to bring my things from my apartment. Though the thought of strangers going through my pathetic belongings made me want to crawl out of my skin. On the 4th day, my phone rang at 2 a.m. Dante's number. Hello? My heart was in my throat, heavy breathing. Then a voice I didn't recognize, thick with an accent I knew was Russian. Your Dante sends his regards. Says to tell you he loves you. He wanted that to be the last thing you heard before. The line went dead. I screamed. Marco burst into the room, gun drawn, and I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only hand him the phone with shaking hands. He listened to something I couldn't hear, his face going pale. Then he made 3 calls in rapid succession, his Italian too fast for me to follow. What happened? I finally managed. Where is he? There was an ambush, at the meeting with Victor. But Emma... Marco's hand on my shoulder was surprisingly gentle. The boss is fine. He's the one who told me to call you on Victor's phone, to make sure you knew he was alive. I don't understand. It was a setup, but not the kind Victor expected. Marco's expression was grim. The boss didn't go to negotiate. He went to end this. And he did. End this how? But I knew. I could see it in Marco's eyes. Victor Kozlov is dead. His organization is scattered. The threat is over. I should have felt relief. Instead, all I felt was numb. Dante came back to me at dawn. He was covered in blood. Not his, Marco assured me quickly. His suit ruined, his eyes haunted. But alive. Whole. Here. I ran to him, and he caught me, holding me so tight I couldn't tell where he ended, and I began. I'm sorry. His voice was wrecked. I'm so sorry, Emma. For all of it. For the danger. For leaving you here alone. Stop. I pulled back enough to see his face. Just tell me it's over. Tell me we're safe. It's over. Victor is gone. His people scattered or absorbed into other organizations. There might be retaliation eventually, but for now... He cupped my face, his thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. For now, you're safe. We're safe. What happens now? Now? He laughed, hollow and exhausted. Now you decide if you can live with what I am, what I've done. Because I won't lie to you, Emma. I killed a man last night. Killed him to protect you, to protect what we might have, and I'd do it again without hesitation. I should have been horrified, should have run, should have chosen safety over this dangerous, consuming thing between us. Instead, I kissed him. He tasted like smoke and desperation, and the promise of tomorrows I'd stopped believing in. When we finally broke apart, we were both crying. "I want to go home," I whispered. Pain flashed across his face. "Of course. Marco can drive you. With you." I held his gaze. "I want to go home with you, to the penthouse, or here, or wherever you are. Because somewhere along the way, you became home, Dante, and I'm tired of running from the only thing that's made me feel alive in years. You don't know what you're saying, the life I lead, the dangers." I know exactly what I'm saying. I took his blood-stained hands in mine. I'm saying yes. To the danger, to the complications, to the crazy, terrifying possibility that maybe broken things can fit together and make something whole. I'm saying yes to being seen, to being protected, to being yours. Emma. I'm saying yes to you, Dante Salvatore. All of you. The good, the bad, the parts that scare me. Because you're right. I deserve more than I've been accepting. And what I deserve is someone who looks at me like I hung the stars, someone who'd burn the world down to keep me safe, someone who makes me want to stop being invisible. He kissed me then, deep and claiming and full of promises we'd spend years figuring out how to keep. When we finally came up for air, the sun was rising through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold and possibility. "Marry me." The words fell from his lips like they'd been waiting there all along. I laughed, the sound breaking free like a bird from a cage. "We've known each other a week, 5 days, he corrected. "And I've never been more certain of anything in my life. That's insane. Probably." His smile was soft, vulnerable, real. "But I spent 15 years being careful, being strategic, building walls. And then you walked through them like they were made of paper. So yes, it's insane, but Emma Carter, I'm asking anyway. Marry me. Build a life with me. Let me spend every day proving you made the right choice. I should have said no. Should have asked for time, for space, for sense. Instead, I said, ask me again in a month, when we've had time to be normal, or whatever passes for normal in your world. A month. His grin was bright enough to rival the sunrise. I can work with that. 6 months later, I stood in Dante's penthouse wearing a simple white dress, Marco and 5 of Dante's most trusted men serving as witnesses. My mother hadn't come, couldn't understand why I'd choose this life, this man. My sister had sent a card with, "Good luck, you'll need it," scrawled inside. But as Dante slid a ring onto my finger, platinum with a diamond that probably cost more than my childhood home, I realized I didn't need their understanding. I'd spent 3 years invisible, convinced I deserved nothing. And then a man in an expensive suit looked at me like I was visible, like I mattered, like I was worth protecting and cherishing and choosing every single day. "I love you," Dante said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I will protect you, cherish you, and remind you every day that you deserve everything. I love you too," I whispered back, "even though you're bossy, overprotective, and have terrible taste in coffee." He laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. Marco coughed. "Boss, you're supposed to kiss her now." So he did. And somewhere in that kiss, between the life I'd left behind and the life I was choosing, I finally understood what it meant to be seen. 2 years later, I stood in the cafeteria at Memorial Hospital, but this time I wasn't serving food. I was there to announce the Salvatore Foundation's new scholarship program. Full tuition for hospital staff who wanted to return to school. Karen stared at me from behind the counter, her expression unreadable. I'd offered her a position with the foundation 3 times. She'd refused 3 times, too proud or too stubborn to accept help from someone she'd once called foolish. But there were others who said yes. 23 people so far, pursuing degrees and dreams they'd thought were out of reach. "You've changed," Karen said as I was leaving. Not an accusation, just an observation. "I know." I smiled. I let someone see me. And it turns out being visible is terrifying and amazing and worth every risk. I left the hospital and climbed into the SUV where Dante waited, his hand immediately finding mine. "How did it go?" he asked. "Good. Really good." I leaned against him, breathing in that cedar cologne that still made my heart race. "Thank you for supporting this, for supporting me. Always." He kissed my temple. "Speaking of support, I got a call from the adoption agency. We have a meeting next week." My heart soared. We'd been trying for a year to adopt, wanting to give a child the kind of family neither of us had been lucky enough to keep. The kind of family built on choice and love rather than obligation. "Really?" "Really." His smile was soft. "Apparently, crime lords with redemption arcs make surprisingly good candidates for parenthood." I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Because my life had become something I never could have imagined that day I spilled coffee on a beautiful stranger. Something dangerous and complicated and real. Marco caught my eye in the rearview mirror. "You two are disgustingly happy. It's unprofessional," says the man who cried at our wedding, Dante shot back. I had something in my eye. We drove home, to the penthouse that no longer felt like a cage, to the life I'd built with a man who'd taught me I deserved to be seen. And I realized something profound. 3 years ago, Marcus had laughed and asked if I was still lonely. If he could see me now, wrapped in Dante's arms, building a foundation that helped others, about to become a mother, surrounded by a found family that would die to protect me, I wondered what he'd say. Probably nothing worth hearing, because the truth was, I wasn't the same girl he'd left behind. That girl had been invisible, small, convinced she deserved nothing. This woman, the one Dante Salvatore loved enough to change his world for, she deserved everything, and she was finally learning to believe it.